mother says he was a normal, happy boy until he became obsessed with black metal music.
Rock and roll!
Sounds like Christian Rick.
Heavy metal music. Groups promote satanic worship.
They're anti-peace and anti-life.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Metal Face Podcast, the podcast where each week we discuss 3 metal albums. My name is Ben, and joining me I have Tom. Tom, say hello.
Hello, Ben.
And I also have Josh. Josh, say hello.
Hello, Ben. Hello, Tom.
Hello.
So this is episode 7. Can you believe it? We've already made it to episode 7.
We're halfway through the season that we've created for ourselves. I don't know if we've declared this, but we were going to do 12 episodes, take a couple of weeks off, and then go and do 12 more episodes.
Because we're working so hard, we need a time.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's hard work. It's podcasting.
Listening to music that we like.
I know, it's tough stuff, isn't it? But we got some good plans for next season. Don't want to give anything away, but we definitely want to revisit some of our kind of genre episodes. I know I want to get grindcore in there. I think for grindcore, rather than doing 3 albums, we should do 9.
It'd take the same amount of
Still
time.
be less listening.
Please, no.
So, in this episode 7, we will be discussing Rotting Christ's album Rituals. We'll be talking about Project Mishram's album Meso. Meso?
Meso.
Okay. And we'll also be talking about Devin Townsend's album Infinity. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Sort of.
For some of it.
Yeah. So how have you guys been this week? Josh, you been up to much?
Yeah, I've been good. I've actually been taking advantage of our unseasonably good weather and doing quite a lot of running. I've been training to do a 10k again because it's been a while since I've run one.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I cracked out a nice cheeky 8k last week. So I think
Cheeky 8k, nice.
God damn. So how long does that take to do 8k? I've never run for that long.
So I've got this app where it's like one of these it's like the Couch to 5k, but it's like extended beyond that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like run and walk, and so it's 17 minutes of running times 3, so like 51 minutes. And then like 3 minutes of walking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
God,
damn.
I'm getting tired just listening to you.
Yeah, you can actually do that because I love cycling and I'm a pretty good, like I can go for a long time on a bike, but walking? Yeah, walking's too hard. But with running, I start to gas out after about 20 minutes.
The trick with running is, so the run walk really helps. You've got a minute in between them to like catch your breath. But also,
Okay.
when you go running, like I think a lot of people try and like give it like, they try and run quickly the whole way, whereas like,
Get it over with.
yeah. But if you're training,
Or you run slowly.
well, if you're training for a distance, like it's totally fine to. One of the advice they quite often give: if you're training to like go further, you don't need to run faster than you walk. Really, you need to do the motion.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
my
That makes sense, actually.
yeah. So one advice I heard was if you imagine you're on the other side of a hedge, someone's on the other side of the hedge to you, and they're watching you run, they shouldn't be able to tell just by your head bobbing up and down whether you're running or you're walking. You should be like quite like slow, because then you don't like overtrain or stress yourself out or anything too much, but you still build all the
I think
endurance.
imagining that might make me run
Okay.
faster though. Having a beer for the man lurking in the hedge.
Yeah, so the trick to running slowly is just to imagine there's a creepy guy on the other side of the hedge watching you constantly.
I'm not so sure about
And
that.
so what have you got on the soundtrack while you're doing your slow, creepy
Well,
runs?
this is what I wanted to talk about, because I normally listen to a podcast.
Oh.
Sorry, shall I start again? Because
You're supposed to say metal.
Okay. Well, I was listening to. I like to listen to kind of quite upbeat, proggy stuff. You know, quite fun, like lighthearted. But I had
Weird time signatures, so you're running in like 3/4 and just like stumbling over constantly.
That's why he's doing the running and then stopping thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when the song slows down.
I had on the other day. I just had on shuffle, and this song by this band called Discarnate came on. I was like, ooh, and they're like a death.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, do you know them? They're like a death metal band, and they're like quite fast and intense.
Yeah, they're good.
They are good, but they came on, and I was like, yeah, and I got really into it. And it was kind of like, you know, like a speed boost, like in a video game or something, when you get like, you know, your Mario Kart and you get the mushroom and you kind of go quickly. Like it was like that, which is great until you got 2 minutes into the song, you're just totally gasping for breath and able to continue.
So
It's like,
When I did my big cycle trip in Europe, there were quite a few times when I wanted to, really push myself and just get a few miles in early in the day. I used to listen to Necrofilth, Devil's Breath. That was a great one. It's really just like a relentless album that just doesn't stop. It has such a savage, kind of wild energy that I was just in the boiling heat going as hard as I could. That was brilliant. And the album's only 25 minutes, so I found that I could sustain like a full pace 25 minutes, and then after that go and jump in a fucking river. A nice river. It's an idyllic setting in my mind.
Well, it's Europe, so they've got like pollution laws and stuff.
Yeah, no, true. But it's necrofilth, so you got to step on a syringe at some point.
You want a kind of grimy pool.
Exactly. What about you, Ben?
So while Josh is apparently taking mushrooms and listening to prog, and you're treading on heroin needles or something, it's really like embarrassing, but I quite like listening to like Sabaton.
Oh yeah.
It's like things like Sabaton or like generally
I can
like
see
battle
that.
That's
metal,
cool.
you know, like just the kind of what's the word? Machismo.
Cheesy.
Machismo? Is that?
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
like, really like machismo male, like you know, like people.
Very gung ho, isn't it?
Yeah.
Testosterone core.
Yeah, and actually, like this week, we'll talk about it more in a bit, obviously. But like Rotting Christ, there's a lot of like, "Hua, hua."
Yeah.
And you sort of like,
Like exterior.
I'm there lifting like 200 grams and struggling, but I'm like, yeah.
If I'm cycling in the rain, and I used to do this a lot when I was sort of commuting. Sometimes you get a job when I used to work for a catering agency. It's quite far out. You're cycling for like 45 minutes in pissing rain in the middle of February. The album Voice of the Wilderness by Corpiclani has such a kind of
I
atmospheric,
can see that,
kind of
yeah.
rainy, like, amongst the hills and the roots. The album sounds like the smell of like water. Wait.
The album sounds like the smell of water.
No, I know what you mean.
The album sounds like that sense of being in a forest with it like raining and the smell of the rain is coming out of the moss and the earth and stuff. And it's really fast paced as well. Lots of kind of heavy sort of Viking-y sort of
See,
drums and stuff.
I knew
That's a
what you
great
meant,
one.
but when you said the album sounds like the smell of water doesn't smell of anything, so I was just like, there's no sound on this album.
You know, the word for that officially is petrichor.
Petrolcore.
Well, this is the thing. You can turn petrichor into a core subgenre very easily. It's add an E.
You could, yeah. Just just rain sounds and shouting. Like, do you remember those like tubes that you had in school?
Oh,
They're, like
yes.
wooden tubes full of like rice, and they made the sound of rain when you like shh, shh. Just like you could have that, and then some like heavy drums and hardcore vocals. There you go.
I'm noticing a gap in the market here because we keep referencing these instruments that we had at school, like the wood blocks they would give you and
Yeah, the
call you
claves.
an instrument. There used to be a band that just uses all of these. Come on.
What I want to know with the rain stick was like, what was that trying to teach us? Because like that doesn't.
You can't get much rhythm out of it.
No,
can you?
I don't
We
think
would-
I don't get it.
We were children, they were just trying to keep you busy.
I remember there was. Do you remember that one that they had that looked a bit like a rocket ship made out of wood and had like a hole in it and some ridges on the side? And you had a stick that you like
Yes.
scraped up and down it.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah, I do.
The one that they had at my like play group. So this is when I was like 3 or 4 or something. It was like red on one end, and someone told me that like it injured someone, or they told me it was like blood.
Oh, God.
And I can still remember that like visceral feeling of fear I had whenever I would like look at it.
You know how they always say like schools do a really bad job of teaching like maths and history and stuff?
Yeah,
I feel like
sure.
they do an equally bad job teaching music by giving
yeah.
us
Yeah.
basic instruments that you can't break. Like there's actually no like teaching involved.
I think they probably do a worse job of teaching music than they do of maths, to be honest.
Do you remember? Did you guys have those keyboards in your secondary school that had the DJ
Oh
button?
god.
Disco, disco, disco.
DJ, DJ.
Yeah, that's it.
I remember once everyone in the class was just like going nuts on all those sorts of things, pressing the DJ button. And the teacher absolutely lost her goddamn mind. I thought her head was going to pop. She was like, if anyone presses that button again, you're instantly out of the class. And it was just like a silence. And they just said, DJ! on the back. And we looked around, there's this kid there with his head in his hands, just like, I had to do it.
Oh my god, they had to install a like cut-off switch in our music room. It was literally like a big red button on the wall, and when everyone was hitting that button, the teacher would run over, slap this big red button, and it would cut the power to all of the desks. It's the only way to stop people.
That's amazing. Like,
Unbelievable.
what those big switches you have in a kitchen.
That's literally like what it was. It was just a big like
Isolator
red
switch,
like
yeah.
emergency cut-off button.
Like, we had this emergency
That's
like
fantastic.
gas cutoffs in the labs, but none of the music.
Yeah, that really says something about the unruliness of the class. You gotta have a cut-off switch in the music room. So what is it that makes music really good workout music? Let's be real, we're talking about metal here, because metal is great workout music.
Yeah, a lot of metal just already fits the bill, right?
I think so. One of the songs we'll actually talk about later today, Sakura on the album by Project Mishram, I think is really good early on in a workout and a run, because it's kind of got this nice light feeling. You kind of feel like you're in this like idyllic situation, and it's like, yeah. And then maybe like 10, 20 minutes later, when you're not feeling so great, your legs are starting to feel quite heavy, and you're kind of out of breath. You want something, I think, like Discarnate, or just like where there's this really raw, kind of like powerful, like someone kind of shouting at you to keep running kind of vibe.
Yeah.
That's for me at least. I don't know about you guys.
I know what you mean. It's a matter of like, do you feel like the song is having a go at you, or do you feel like you're part of that furious power?
Exactly.
A lot of people don't like metal because they feel like the music is aimed at them, like they're being shouted at. And I'm like, no, it's like it should express something within you, an aggressive energy. And I don't mean aggressive in a negative, like violent way. Aggression as in like assertive,
I think generally, like, I want something that's going to distract me from the fact that I'm having to exercise, because it's no secret. I kind of resent the fact that we have to exercise these flesh prisons that we're in. I just wish they would be perfectly formed and remain that way for our life, but obviously it's not
especially
that way.
over the last year, where we've basically all just been stuck inside. When I was a chef, I was on my feet like all day, and it was easy to just like keep fit. Not so much now.
Yeah, despite the fact that I was eating chips all day, every day whilst I was a chef.
Yeah.
I was somehow in the best shape of my life. Probably not internally, but...
Despite the fact that I spent half of my working life as a chef stood over a deep fat fryer and
breathing in.
and inhaling. Yeah.
So you can get fat from breathing in fat.
I don't know, that's a good point.
Let's test it.
Secondary fat.
Let's get some...
I'll track down a biologist and ask. Actually, I think I know a few biologists. I'll see if I can get them to do it.
We used to, when we would clean the extractor fans above the deep fat fryer and the grill, it literally was like an inch thick of like pure fat after like a week, like every week. And you'd have to go in there and just like scrape it all out with like one gloved hand. And you pick it up and it's like the consistency of like peanut butter, but just pure fat. Yeah, that was really cool actually.
They used to contract a company to come in and like climb into our roof with like a big hose pipe and suck all that stuff out. I'm glad I never had to do it.
We had to do it ourselves every week.
Imagine being that guy.
It was cool though. I used to like sticking my head in the extractor fan and just like scraping out all this fucking blackened
I feel like
grease.
you would enjoy that for some reason. Just somehow enriching to you.
That's necrofilth, man.
Do you guys want to hear a really grim story about fat, like cooking fat?
Yes.
So there was a scandal a few years ago in China because it was discovered that certain like street food type of, like, there's little carts who like cook like buns or this kind of thing.
Oh, I feel like I know this.
Yeah.
It was discovered what they were doing was they were like going into the drains and getting the old like solidified disposed of cooking fat from the restaurants.
Oh my god.
And like taking it up and like rinsing it and then throwing it on the ground.
Oh, that's amazing. God damn.
Where do you think it was
Delicious.
going? It seemed to surprise you.
I thought they were going to be stealing the fat from liposuction clinics.
Yeah, so did I.
I realise now that that's...
That's way less bad.
I don't know which I
That's
would
clean.
be more
They're
disgusted
both
by.
pretty bad, but I feel like... I don't know why I imagine sort of Chinese food vendors would be breaking into medical clinics.
If you could get like a
Bit of
burger
a stretch.
made out of mince, but they use like 100% like lean meat and then incorporated excess liposuction fat into it, so you have like a half human, half cow burger. Like, would that be cannibalism?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
I think any part of
being-
eating other people is cannibalism. I draw the line pretty low on that stuff.
So obviously, two of us are vegetarians, but that aside, would you eat that burger?
Yeah, sure.
Well, you're the only non-vegetarians.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Just, wait, hang on. Eating meat doesn't mean that I'm necessarily willing to be a cannibal. I mean, I am.
Oh,
not
fucking
doing
doesn't it, Tom?
Like, I'm just saying, obviously correlation doesn't mean causation, but the meat eater wants
The
to
two
eat
vegetarians
humans.
on the podcast don't want to be cannibals, but you do.
Actually, I mean, to be
It's
fair,
not that I want to be a cannibal. Being a meat eater doesn't make me a cannibal, but incidentally, yes, I would eat human meat in the right circumstances.
But-
of course, why would you not? Go for it. Fucking do whatever comes up, you know? Gotta have something to fill the day.
Speaking of which, our first album this week. Our first album this week is Rituals by Rotting Christ. Alright, so, Rotting Christ. They've actually been around for a lot longer than I thought they had. They were formed in 1984 under the name Black Church before becoming Rotting Christ in 1987. And they're still active today.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I know. They're an older band than I expected. They're from Athens, that's Greece, not Georgia. They started out actually as a grindcore act.
No way.
Yeah, before moving towards a more black metal sort of scene-ish these days. I think they incorporate elements of symphonic and melodic black metal, a lot of sort of tribal and battle metal kind of elements as well, which is fucking awesome. Today we're talking about Rituals, their 12th studio album, which was released in 2016. I actually came across this album whilst researching for our black metal special we did a couple of weeks ago, and I've been listening to it ever since, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Tom, tell me what you thought.
So I was familiar with Running Christ through the song 666, but that was just about the only song I listened to. It was on the trailer for Bloodstock one year, I want to say like 2013 or something like that. So I've known about them for a while. They've been on my radar, definitely. But I never sat down and kind of listened to them. And I think I sort of know why. Because when I sat down and listened to this album, Rituals, first listen through, I thought, yeah, great. That's a good album. That's cool. I really like it. Yeah, nice. And I sort of thought, but, you know, it's nothing to write home about, really, is it? But then I listened to it again and I thought, damn, there's actually some really good songs on here. Like, some stuff's really starting to stand out. And I listened to it quite a lot, you know, in the lead up to this episode. And when I listened to it today, like final time through to get some thoughts together for the episode, I like every single song on the album now. Genuinely, there's like nothing that I would skip. And I think this goes back to something that we've talked about before of like, they've established a sound and they're sort of doing the same thing with it in each song. And it's a really cool new sound. But they're also trying out loads of different stuff with it. It's a really nice balance of like something that sounds really new, but there's also a lot of variation in there.
Yeah, I find a lot of bands will have like a song with a chanting portion in it, whereas it feels like the majority of their music has chanting in it. That's the kind of thing they've picked.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of the album Roots by Sepultura, which has got all sorts of like foreign language chanting, like you know, traditional sort of tribal instruments and moments in it. And this album has a lot of different languages on it as well, doesn't it?
I think it's 3 or 4 I counted.
Yeah, I think they... Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Latin, Greek, French, and English.
Yeah, I really liked the French on it.
That was cool. I came out of nowhere, but I was like, huh.
Yeah, what did you think of the album, Josh?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I kind of felt like, interestingly, I kind of agree with Tom. They have a really interesting sound they've kind of picked and they've gone for it. And they've gone through and they've done these variations on it, and there's so many different influences. You can hear lots of other bands in there, but not in like a derivative way. But I don't think I was quite as in love with it as Tom was. I like, it was really good. I don't know, I think maybe I need to spend more time with it, or maybe I find it difficult to like listen to like that style of music for a very long time.
Right.
But, like, I kind of felt like if the songs were a little bit shorter and like the album was like a little bit shorter,
really,
maybe that'd be like, I know I say this about every album, so maybe I just don't like music, but like
it's what we've discovered. Josh doesn't like music. Explains a lot of his choices.
I'm not gonna dignify that with a response, Ben. What was it you wanted to say?
It's not like super tight as an album. Like there's some long songs on here, but like I think once I was sort of sold on the sound, I really started to get into it.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's like background, because it's not that, but it's like it has kind of a hypnotic sort of feel
absolutely
to it,
like,
you know?
I think it's one of those things where like definitely like the more you listen to it, the more you like it. Like I listened to it through again when I was on my run today, and I was like, some of these are pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of songs in there that I think have like a lot of playlist potential. You know, you can definitely save and listen to them lots of times over. For me, I think that I don't know. I just wasn't like totally in love with it. Like, I'm not criticizing it at all. It's just I think I didn't. Yeah.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, my sort of impression of it throughout this week has been I really like it. A lot of the songs are like fairly similar, but I like what they're doing, so I'm happy to like put it on. And I agree with that point about it being kind of background music in a way, because it's very rhythm led. There's not like a lot of just random wailing guitar solos just for the sake of it. It's a lot of chanting, a lot of really awesome drums, brilliant, like just, you know.
It's very hard to tell what the kind of like what to listen to in the song. If you know what I mean? Like, so, especially like if we're talking about like thrash and stuff being very like lead focused. There's a lot of, you know, certainly like pop music and rock music and stuff is very like voice focused. You're listening to the person singing. With this, there's no obvious kind of thing to listen to that guides you through.
Yeah.
It has, as you say, that chanting quality of like sounds coming over and over again.
It all kind of blends, doesn't it, into like a just mix of, you know, suddenly the guitars are a little bit above the mix, and then the voice comes back, and then the drums are leading it again, and it all just kind of flows so nicely, and I really like that about it.
I kind of felt that like this would be like, if it was like 10% groovy, it would be like a really, really cool like doom album. Like, because it's got the hypnotic quality with all the different other things, and it's still really cool. And I don't being really negative.
No, I know what you mean. There's some feeling about it of like there's this kind of like, it feels like it has potential to be something different to what it is. I'm glad that it's not that though, because
that's fair.
I like how different it is in that, like, you sort of keep expecting it to, like, drop into just, like, an album now, you know what I mean? But instead it consistently goes for this idea of, like, foreign language kind of, like, chanting and stuff. And there's, like, spoken word bits in here. There's, like, really kind of atmospheric stuff with, like, battle sounds and things. There's the one with the woman kind of, I don't know what language it's in.
Oh, it's really like frantically...
I think that's Greek, yeah.
It's kind of yelling, like talking really fast over the top.
Yelling and screaming.
Do you know who it reminded me of a lot? It reminded me of Behemoth.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Not a comparison I was expecting to make.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I feel like Behemoth could write a Rotting Christ song. And
Definitely.
a lot of Rotting Christ songs sound like they could be Behemoth songs. But I don't know if Behemoth could write an album of songs which sound so similar, but have such subtle differences that the more you listen to it, the more it stands out more and more and more. You know, with Behemoth, you have those like crazy solos, those bits where you're like, oh my god, this is this bit of a song. But every Rotting Christ song just feels like it starts kind of low and builds and builds and builds and ends in this like epic way.
Yeah.
But they managed to do it with every track.
Yeah, they really do. It's like, as I say, it's like kind of doing the same thing over and over, but also doing it really differently.
Yeah.
They have that slightly Boskeloid effect of like stacking the sound. So
definitely.
you start out with something and then build it and build it and build it.
Yeah, and we mentioned it a minute ago. The vocal style, I love this guy's voice. Like it sounds like he's like gargling oil and like spitting. Like, it just sounds so...
It's like molten lava. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
honestly,
Really
it's
nasty,
amazing.
it's good.
It's horrible. We always do this.
Horrible. I love it.
What was it we described ulcerate as?
Ulcerate was nauseating.
Nauseating.
Yeah.
And that's going to come up later, by the way.
Yeah, I thought it might.
Yeah, we talked about like the battle metal stuff a minute ago as well, and the song "For a Voice Like Thunder."
Oh yeah.
That was the first song.
That was a cool song.
I mean, the most popular song on the album is Zenigma, which is a really, really good track.
Oh
but,
really?
Yeah.
Not the Four Horsemen song.
Oh, that was
No,
good.
no, yeah. See, look,
What's
we're
that song
starting
called
to name all these tracks. It's called The Four
Four
Horsemen.
Horsemen.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, for a voice like Thunder was the first song that really, really grabbed me. It's so epic and like it has that like spoken word intro bit. I just love like the lyrical themes and stuff. I think one of them is like, and then Sin claps his wings across the battlefield, and like another bit is like, and they ask who has done this, who is responsible.
Yeah.
It's so like epic, and then that got me hooked.
Yeah.
I do actually see the comparison to Behemoth there as well, actually, now that you mention it. Like, with that specifically, where it's got this big, high-concept kind of hook for the actual song that isn't necessarily musical, but it really draws you in.
Yeah, and it's very mid-pace as well, isn't it? And like we've talked about this before about, because you described them as black metal, and I said, I didn't realize they were black metal. And then it's weird listening to this because it like there are some bits where it's definitely black metal or like couldn't exist without black metal.
Yeah.
But it's like it's hard to kind of nail down what genre it would actually be.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it like you say, it mixes in battle metal. It's got that kind of Sepultura, like, you know, that Sepultura album is quite often described as like new metal.
Yeah.
Right? Which is like, and it's obviously new metal is very rhythm led. This album's very rhythmic, you know.
Blackened folk death.
That's not a bad description, to be fair. I think maybe it's because they're not doing anything that's like flashy and crazy, but the thing they're doing really well.
Yeah.
And it's in a really interesting place. It's just not like jumping out and grabbing you, but then the more you listen to it, the more you're like, hang on, this is actually really good.
Yeah, and it's a tremendous sense of atmosphere as well. Like, you can't listen to it without imagining something really dark.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds black.
Yeah.
And I imagine it probably, I mean, you say they're Greek, I imagine it probably draws on the fact that Greece is a Catholic country as well. I haven't been to Greece for a long time, but the religion's quite in your face there, isn't it?
I think they're Orthodox in Greece,
Yeah.
and they might get upset if you call them Catholic, but yes.
Well done, you've pissed
Damn,
off a
that's
nation
true.
of Greece.
That is, yeah. You got me, man.
More enemies for the podcast.
I like to think I'm clued in on this sort of thing.
To be fair, if they get upset by calling them Catholic when you mean Orthodox, they're probably going to be upset that we're talking about rotting Christ, so...
That is
Yeah.
true. And a little fact that I learned whilst actually researching for our next episode, which is, spoiler, going to be a Thrash episode.
Thrash Attack.
Thrash Attack.
Hashtag Thrash Attack.
I found out that Dave Mustaine of Megadeth fame once refused to play a show with Rotting Christ now that he's a born again Christian.
Now he's a massive fanny.
I remember I met a guy at a festival once who just was talking at length about how much better Mustaine was when he was on the heroin. And he was like, you could tell he was doing a speedball right before the show.
We could probably come back to this later, but sometimes that is a bit true, isn't it?
I don't necessarily think it is. This is this guy's opinion.
We're not quite ready to endorse heroin yet. We're waiting for the sponsorship on that one.
But when did Metallica write all their best albums? When they were alcoholics.
One band that actually reminded me of quite a lot was this another Greek band, and this might just be because I'm ignorant of music, but they're called Villages of, and I'm very sorry to the people of Greece for this mispronunciation, Villages of Ioannidis City. And they're kind of a
Ioannidis.
Oh yes, I don't either.
they're interesting. They're like a really groovy rock band, but they use, I think, the same pipe instrument that Rotten Christ do for a lot of their songs. Like, it sounds kind of like bagpipes.
Okay.
And it just, I don't know why I think beyond that as well, like, it kind of spoke to me like what like a slightly groovier, more uplifting kind of vibe would be.
I can hear that pipe instrument in my head right
Yeah,
now.
me
Like,
too.
it's so good.
It is really good. They've done well to throw these so many elements in and like keep it sounding consistent.
Yeah.
I really am impressed by how they've got a sound stuck to it, but also done loads with it. You know?
It's amazing, really, that chanting male choirs and pipes and death metal and orchestral drums all fit together in a single.
It is, and it goes against what people's impressions of metal is so much. I mean, someone said to me fairly recently about metal, they were like, oh, I can't imagine metal being very like atmospheric. And I was like, I feel like so much metal is all about atmosphere these days.
Yeah. Do you know? And that's something actually that we've touched on a couple of times now. Is like, and I think I talked about it when we were talking about Dying Fetus. In the past, there's been a focus on the instruments being really technically skilled. Thinking particularly of like thrash, new wave of British metal, that kind of like history.
Yeah.
And now it is a lot more focused on sort of that complete package, that atmosphere, that entire world, and being completely sucked into it.
Yeah.
I actually think that in a way, it kind of is a shame because I actually quite have enjoyed listening to things like thrash and Dying Fetus and just actually listening to the playing and just actually really enjoying that element of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's room for everything.
It takes all kind.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. That's my go-to slogan.
Well, I think we're going to cover an album later on today, which is very technical without much atmosphere. So I think it'll be interesting to. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean
Getting a pre-rinse.
no. I'm not rinsing it at all. It's
Get it
just-
in now. There's gonna be plenty later.
I know what you mean, and sometimes I do sort of crave that like technical, like lead-focused sort of sound of thrash and things. I think I've got room for both. I wonder if at the moment, given the circumstances of the last year, we're all craving something quite escapist and theatrical. You know, actually, when we start getting back out there and going to pubs and banging our heads on walls and things like that, like we're gonna want something that's a little bit more grounded in that like social everyday
potentially.
kind of, rather than for
That'll be
fantasizing about being a warrior.
An interesting thing to study. Josh, this can be your next PhD. The effect
no.
COVID has had on people's taste in metal.
One is more than enough. One is much more than anyone should do.
I've got to say, I think this album, I've no doubt we're going to end up doing this anyway, but if we were going to pick our favourite albums from the first season of Metal Face, this might be it for me.
Oh,
I just
really?
feel like it's perfect.
Wow.
You can work out to it, you can work to it, you can fucking pay attention to it and love every bit of it.
Yeah.
I have really, really loved this album. And I love that
Yeah,
first
me
track
too.
with the Latin, it's been in my head like all week. In nomine de nostre, Satanas Lucifere, Excelse!
Yeah.
It's so good, man. Like, it's stuck in my head all week.
Well, how does the album start? She pasas, she.
I thought you would really like that.
Si pasos.
That was cool. I like that as well.
It was very cool, yeah. And I like the sort of slightly distorted electronic kind of voice that comes in. In the name of Satan. So cool. Yeah. I've got time for Satanism in metal still.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
It's not quite played out yet.
There's a little bit more juice in that. A little bit more milk in that udder.
The udders of Satan.
Or satanic cow milked dry.
So I'm gonna have a hard time picking, but I'd like to know your favourite tracks in this album. Tom, what do you think?
I really like the first song, In Nomine de Nostri. Great opener for the album. And kind of like, definitely the first three, I have really enjoyed listening to them over and over again. For a voice like Thunder, also really like that for Four Horsemen. There's a lot on this album, basically. It would be hard to pick any. I think if I had to go for one, I think El Thay Kyrie is probably the one that really stands out.
That's the one we mentioned earlier with the really hectic female vocals on it.
Yeah. Oh, and I love the French one as well, actually. I feel like the French language, if it's done right in metal, can actually sound really aggressive and weird, which you don't really expect of France. Sorry, France.
Another nation
Only
added to the
Gajira
list.
listening.
Josh, any favourite tracks on the album?
Yeah, so for me, on Rituals, my favourite tracks are probably, and this I feel is going to be controversial. It's one of these things where before, when I was kind of complaining about it, and I'm looking at the track list and like, yeah, I liked all those songs. But I really liked Four Horsemen, and I really liked Deva Devam. Sorry, it's in Sanskrit, so I probably mangled that. But I thought that was really good. So those two.
The slightly, I mean, to me, it sounds like a slightly sort of Indian, sort of Asiatic kind of sound.
Yeah, I think that was it. Sanskrit's an Indian language, so yeah. Or maybe South Asian.
I don't think any Sanskrit speakers are going to be offended.
Deva Devam was actually definitely my favourite track on the album as well.
Oh, really? Yeah. Cool.
Really?
Yeah, so what were yours then?
Yeah, Deva Devam definitely. I could pick a lot of tracks and I will just leave it there. But Deva Devam has been my favourite track, and every time that one comes on, I'm like, fuck yeah! But, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, For a Voice Like Thunder was the first track that caught me. Four Horsemen's amazing. Zenigma's amazing. In Nominated Nostra is amazing. Listen to this album, please. Do it.
There's a lot of good shit on this album. Fucking good choice, Ben.
Yeah, good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Man.
Thank you. What's up next?
So up next, we have Meso by Project Mishram. Project Mishram are a prog metal / Carnatic fusion band from Bangalore, also known as Bengaluru, in India. For those of you who don't know, Carnatic music is a style of Indian classical music. There's a big focus on complex rhythms, which are kind of parts sung as well alongside the actual rhythmic measures. Meso is their first studio album. Whilst it's their first album, they have toured the UK in 2019 and played at Techfest, and also have a number of singles out before then.
Oh,
they're not like they're not like unestablished by any means.
Yeah,
and they've got quite a large back catalogue of singles. This is their first album. I've listened to their earlier music and I really liked a lot of it, and I thought they were really cool. And basically, a few weeks ago, I realised this album was coming out in the middle of our recording schedule, and I said, well, let's listen to it. And I had no idea what it was going to be like, so I was kind of like did a punt on it, I think that's the word. And
that's very male of you.
It's
generic man.
Is punt a bad word?
No, it just
Okay.
I'm just not used to talking like a generic bloke.
Taking a punt on it.
All right, so I took a punt on it, and
Did you see that ludicrous display last night?
I think it paid off. I thought this was a really fun album, and there were definitely bits I liked more than other bits, but overall, I had a lot of fun listening to it, and I'm interested to know what you guys thought. Tom?
Yeah, so this was a really interesting listen. I mean, we don't get to hear enough metal from this part of the world. Obviously, it is out there, so it was great hearing something that comes from a totally different cultural background, and you can really hear that, what do you call it, Carnatic music?
Yeah, so that's when there's the kind of like vocal like rhythmic bits.
It sounded really fucking cool.
Yeah.
And I can totally see it being really adaptable into metal. There's a weird thing about this album where there's sort of, it's a whole load of different influences. You've got that traditional Indian stuff, you've got the metal parts, and you've got sort of whole kind of jazz sections as well. They come together in a really interesting way, and in some places they cross over better than in others, I think. I suppose the headline here is that I really enjoyed listening to it. It was something really different. Don't know if it necessarily like grabbed me like individually that much, partly because, and I know this is a broad statement, but really just don't like jazz. I sort of want to like it because I've enjoyed it when I've seen it live at places like the Old Duke in Bristol, but I just can't get my head around the music. And so there's like 2 tracks on here that are like purely jazz.
Yeah.
Right? Those 2 tracks, straight up, didn't like them. I would like to have liked them, but there were parts of it that I did also really like. It's a difficult one to kind of pin down my feelings about. I've got a lot of respect for these guys. It's not quite my jam, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, that's fair. What do you think, man?
I found a quote from the band on their Bandcamp page, and I think it's interesting to start with that because it kind of links into how I felt about the album. So they said, Meso, or middle, was the name we landed on when we had to reach middle ground while trying to name an album that had no common ground to begin with. Each song uses different soundscapes and core ideas with little to no regard for coherence across the tracks.
Yeah.
That pretty much hits the nail on the head. There's some pretty metal tracks on the album. There's a jazz track on the album which has no metal influence at all. There's every track is very different. Much like Tom, I'm really glad I've heard it.
Yeah.
I really liked some of the songs, and then other songs I was just like, well, this is good music, but it's just not what I listen to, so it's not for me.
I'd almost hesitate to even kind of call it a metal album in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't do that out of any kind of elitism.
Well, I don't think you
all.
could call it a jazz album either, could you?
No, exactly.
It's in the middle, really.
Well, Exactly. It's aptly
It's
named.
Meso.
It's in the middle. Yeah. And I think they haven't created like a new sound necessarily. They've combined a lot of kind of existing sounds into something that's like a conglomerate of those things. I think I would be really interested to see what they do next. I could see this as being like a first album.
Definitely.
You know, where it's like the sound isn't quite matured into what it could be yet.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Absolutely.
And I don't know which way they're going to lean in the future. If they're going to make a jazz album next or if they're going to make a metal album next.
Are people going to be like, you know, that jazz band has some metal tracks in its back?
Yeah.
Or are they going to
maybe...
that metal band used to have a whole jazz thing?
Something that I would like to see is them to try and mesh those elements even more and have like a...
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if it'd be possible. I'm nowhere near as talented as these guys are, and I'm sure if anyone could do it, they could. A metal jazz track. Let's do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jazz metal is kind of this area where like people have sort of tried it. Tripalium have tried it, and like a bunch of other bands here and there on the fringes have tried to fuse those sounds. It's never quite been achieved, but there's definitely a room for jazz metal. It's definitely gonna happen in my opinion.
I think these guys might be the ones to do it.
Yeah. I just wonder when and why no one's pulled it off yet.
Yeah, like I say, I'm really hyped for these guys in like 2 years. Like I really want to see what the second album's going to be like. I think it's going to be really good.
Definitely.
I kind of agree with you, Ben. Like all the individual tracks are really cool, and it was like there were really cool bits. Like Sakura, I think was a great song, and I think that really shows like when they're at the best. It was like Kana Kana, Loca Coco are all great as well. I mean, that's quite that runs kind of starts the gamut there.
Yeah.
But it almost feels like it's just a collection of songs rather than an album. If you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it does.
definitely.
Yeah,
Which is fine.
I mean, and that's what they said.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
that's-
But it did for me slightly damage the enjoyability of it as an album.
Yeah, I gotta say, I was sort of first listen, like the first song, I was excited to see what the rest of the album was going to be.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I don't think it hit that level that it achieved in Sakura.
Yeah.
That said, I did really like Loco Coco, actually.
That was a really
I felt
fun
like
song.
It's a really fun song, and it's about coffee.
Yeah.
Right? It's about like enjoying drinking coffee and being like, I need that shit first thing in the morning. You know? Like, it made me laugh, and I was like, this is kind of like a sweet song. Like, yeah, fair enough. You know, that's true. I like coffee, and well, I mean, anyone who knows me pretty well is going to be like, mate, you drink instant coffee, just fuck off.
This is a really crazy album, isn't it? Because you could bring this to a non-metal episode and be like, there are a couple of metal tracks on here, but it's not a metal album. But then you have brought it for a metal episode, and it also makes sense.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Loca Coco, I didn't really like that track. I like a lot of different music, but that to me, I was just kind of like, yeah, it's well put together, it's well composed track, it's well recorded, etc. But it's just like, yeah. It's not for me. It's not. I'm not going to listen to that
For sure.
It's pushing very far, isn't it? It's like it's quite far outside of the like influences that have made up my music taste.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for me too as well. Like it's just such a different thing. And again, it's obviously well written, well put together. Just not for me. That's not a criticism. That's just what it is.
No, it's very hard to actually be critical of this band, and I wouldn't want to be really, because like they are clearly very skilled guys doing what they're doing. You know, they've risen to sort of they've been noticed by the metal scene over here, despite being from a very different part of the world. Like, good for them.
Yeah.
I think Sakura is exactly the kind of thing that I'd want to see from them in the future. Because it starts a really pleasant, quite light touch with the Indian influences and stuff, and it leans more and more into it as the track goes along, and I really appreciate that about it, is that it kind of drew me in with this stuff that I knew, and then gave these really interesting influences, and I think if they started with the album like that, and then just leaned into those Indian traditional influences throughout an entire metal album, I think that could be like a 10 out of 10 album.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know if you heard the earlier single. I think I shared it in the kind of pre-show. Cynic Machine. I thought.
Yeah, I really liked that.
Cynic Machine I thought was
very cool.
amazing. That was kind of what really got me into the band, and I kind of came into this album thinking it was going to be just an hour of Cynic Machine. So...
I think put Sakura,
Absolutely.
Cynic Machine, Kana Kana, that track as well. A full album with that, I'd be like probably sitting here saying it's the best thing I've heard all year. You know, it's
and
really
like,
interesting.
The metal scene in general has a real hunger for like instruments from other parts of the world.
Yeah.
It's, as we were saying, you sort of don't expect it, but metal really, in general, likes to bring in traditional folk sounds,
Definitely.
and classical sounds, and like just foreign sounds into the music all the time. It can be very, very eclectic.
Now, Josh, on that track, Cynic Machine, what was the name of the instrument you said that guy was absolutely shredding on?
I think it's called a Vina.
A Vina. Yeah, I would say people go listen to Cynic Machine and watch the video, because watching that guy completely shred on that like Vina is just incredible.
It's really impressive.
I've never seen it before, and it's amazing.
No, it's really cool. Like that whole song is just like, it was definitely like not what I expected at all, and it's like you can hear its influences, but it's really like new and refreshing. I think, you know, the whole album as a whole is very new and refreshing, despite kind of the various issues you had with it. And overall, I think it's really, like, I recommend you listen to it really highly.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a lot of fun.
I mean, you know, these guys are pretty privileged. Okay, I looked him up on Bandcamp and I gave him a follow. I don't hand those things out lightly, but I gave him a follow. I'm excited to see what they're up to. You know,
Definitely one to watch.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm so hyped for these guys in like Metal Face season 5. You know. When the second
Oh my god,
album's out.
yeah. Yeah, no, I really I've listened to all 3 of the albums this week a lot because we've had 2 weeks to do it, and the more I've listened to this album, I've been like, do you know, actually, to be fair, these songs are really good. Like, I just want to see more of the heavier bits. I think I was annoyed because I like listened to Sakura and then like Nivasa happened, and I was like, what the fuck did you do?
That's the thing.
Back to the
if
other
it was
thing.
an hour of Sakura, I'd just be like, I'd be vibing. You know, it'd be great.
Yeah, I would be as well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what these guys do in the future. I think my favourite song on the album, actually, weirdly enough, was Loco Coco. I know it's not quite in the vibe that we're talking about here, but it felt like music that I'd never really heard anything like that before. Something that unique is always going to get high praise from me.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really fair. I think for me, my favorite tracks were Sakura and Loco Coco. They kind of do all the best things about the album, I think, are in those 2 songs. Which isn't to say there isn't really good stuff in the rest of it, but I think those 2, if I wanted to sum up the album, I would show some of those songs. Yeah, loads of fun, very listenable. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, I think my favourite track from the album, Agreement, Sakura, definitely. I liked Kana Kana as well.
Yeah, that was cool.
But I think if I was going to show someone a song from this band, I would probably go with Cynic Machine. And I hope they do more stuff like that. Like, genuinely, I really enjoy
Cynic Machine
that.
is a great song. I'm not going to argue that at all.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more stuff from these guys. I'm really excited to see what they
definitely. Good choice.
do. Yeah,
Glad you guys liked it.
Interesting. As always, Josh.
And so, in a rare moment, we're going to continue the prog theme with one of my choices. I don't know how much prog I'll be bringing to this podcast over our lifetime.
Between now and when we die.
How much prog will we talk about between now and death?
I don't know how much prog I'll be bringing to this podcast in the future. But up next, we've got Devin Townsend with Infinity. So, Devin Townsend is a Canadian singer, songwriter, and all-round musician who rose to fame with the extreme metal band Strapping Young Lad, which he was a part of from 1994 to 2007. Since then, he's released 25 albums across his solo projects, Devin Townsend and the Devin Townsend Project. I really like Strapping Young Lad, so I've always been aware of Devin Townsend and what he's doing, and kind of watched his career quite closely. But I've never really been very grabbed by his solo stuff. Felt to me like it was stripping out kind of the anger and that kind of iron hard heaviness that Strapping Young Lad have. So this album was an opportunity to really check out his sound on his solo projects properly. His sound is a massive mishmash of influences. To call it just prog would be selling it short. There's a lot of kind of everything in there, and he does go for this sort of wall of noise approach. I feel like this is someone where you want to talk about the music rather than the background of the actual band, so I think let's just get straight into it. I feel like there is going to be some heavy opinions about this album. So, Josh, why don't you kick us off?
Right, so I really like prog metal. There's a lot of prog bands I really like. Dream Theater were a big favourite of mine for a long time, you know. And, well, I've listened to Strapping Young Lad before, I should say. I do like a lot of Strapping Young Lad too. I'm not like a big fan, but like whenever I hear them, I'm like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And Devin's always a musician I've really wanted to like. I've always like heard his stuff, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could get into that. And I love the idea, like the when he did the Ziltoid like rock opera musical thing in the Royal Albert Hall. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's really my kind of vibe, you know. I love that stuff, but when I listened to this album, I really struggled with it because there were loads of really cool bits. Like the first song, Truth, I think it is.
Yeah,
amazing, great, really strong. But it didn't. A lot of the other songs down just didn't grab me. I found it quite frustrating in a way because there were bits where I was like, I know you can do this in the way I like, and obviously the music he writes isn't for me. But when I'm listening to it, I'm like, there are songs that I really like, and then some of the songs have, I don't know what to call it, I have written down my notes like a circus beat.
Yes.
How would you describe that rhythmically? Something a little bit polka.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Right.
Like that's really a pet hate of mine in
really?
metal.
I quite
whenever a
like
metal
that.
song does it, I'm just like, stop.
I completely agree with Josh. That belongs in one place, and it's the circus.
I kind of dig it, actually. I like the high energy aspect of it.
I will say with this album, most of the criticisms I have are just things that I find personally annoying. Like, it's really, like, there's lots of really well written and amazing creative songs. It's just, like, personally, it's a vibe. Like, I'm not gonna say it's, like, bad. It's obviously not. It's just that, like, a lot of the things that I find annoying about music were in it. So, Truth, really cool song. War, cool song. But yeah.
I know exactly what you mean about, like, listening to Truth, you can see the potential of the music. And there is something about the album where it's hard to know whether it's really delivering on that potential or whether it's just giving the impression that it's delivering. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's something about it where it's you're sort of like, is this good? You know? And I think I struggled with this, but I'll come back to that because I'm going to throw it over to you, Ben, because I know you have some strong feelings about this. And we should probably all put our cards on the table first before we
Strong
get into
feelings. I got strong feelings.
I got mad feelings.
I got mad feelings about this. So, give me a couple minutes here, because there's a couple of things that I want to just go.
I'm gonna go make
So,
sandwich while you do this.
Yeah, go make some food, get another beer maybe. So, I'll start off by saying the album does feel like a personal project, and I really like that about it. It has a quality of being really tightly packed, and songs like really naturally flowing and escalating and changing in a way that it feels like it's come from one mind. I don't think the complexity of some of these ideas could have been captured so well by an entire band or a group of musicians. It's clearly one guy's work. I know he worked with like a drummer on this, but he is obviously the leading influence on this. The album opened really well. I really liked Truth. Christine and Bad Devil, pretty good songs. I enjoyed those as well. However, once it hit Soul Driven Cadillac, I detested this album. I hated it. I really did. Look, I've done a bit of reading about the album on the heavydevi.fandom.com, which is the Devin Townsend wiki. I understand where the place he was in when he wrote this album. He had just released Strapping Young Lad album, which was very heavy, and then he was kind of struggling between these extremes in his life, and he actually checked himself into a mental health hospital with bipolar disorder.
Right, okay.
And I think, so coming from that place, I actually feel like he's captured some of that in the album, and he was trying to deal with those feelings, and I think it is kind of reflected in the music. I don't want to disparage that. I hope the guy's doing well, obviously. But some of those tracks made me feel physically nauseous with the amount of energy and manic, frantic stuff going on.
I mean, Ants is a perfect example of this. Ants is just like round and round
Ants
and round and round.
is the one that comes to mind. Yeah, I genuinely, I'm not joking, I had to turn the album off because it actually gave me a headache and made me feel sick.
There's something about it where, like, there's like a synth sound throughout or something that has a kind of like effect the whole time.
Yeah.
As somebody with tinnitus, there's something about the mastering where it feels like it's inside your ears, like in your eardrum.
Yeah.
I don't like the way it's mixed.
No, me neither. And in the same way that the inventor of, say, the rack or thumb screws certainly did a good job of creating something painful, I wouldn't want to try it, and I won't be coming back to it. So, thanks, Devin.
Well, I mean, I think that's interesting that you say that about, like, it's not nice to listen to. Here's the thing. You take a song like Ants. That song almost sounds like a grindcore song, but without the satisfying feeling of heavy drums, distorted guitar, and really kind of retching, drawn-out kind of grind vocals. Take all that away, acousticize it, add some synth in, you've got Ants, and it's a real headache if you're not in the mood for it.
You know when they do those Disneyfying metal songs or like making Slayer into bluegrass? It's kind of like that. But it's just so hectic.
Hyperactive beyond belief.
Yeah. And
it does.
Truth, Christine, and Bad Devil were great tracks,
Yes.
I think. They were 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed those.
Bad Devil especially, I really vibe with that.
Yeah.
First 3 songs are like super strong. To say that I liked the album would be true. To say that I didn't like the album would also be true. I feel really confused about how I feel about this. I have listened to it all the way through a few times. Sometimes I've not liked it kind of at all and being like, this is, no matter what volume I play it at, I feel like it's damaging my ears. And like, I've had other occasions where I've listened to it all the way through and been able to maintain my energy alongside the energy that the album's giving. And now I'm a big grindcore fan, and grindcore is super high energy. Sometimes you have to summon the energy up to be able to listen to grindcore. Sometimes it kind of gives it to you. Do you know what I mean? I felt like today I was coming back from Shoreditch, where my offices are, and I had time on the train. I had 45 minutes to... You're making a face like, ooh, I work in Shoreditch. Ooh, I work in media in Shoreditch.
Showbiz.
I was coming back from Shoreditch, which, by the way, is where I work, in media. And
Well, no, point being that, like, from Shoreditch to West Ham...
And I said to my driver, put on that Devin Townsend track.
From Shoreditch to West Ham is about the similar length to the album. And so I felt like, okay, I've got time to, like, listen to this. I didn't have fucking anything else to do. Just sat there and listened to it. In that circumstance, I enjoyed it because I felt like I was kind of listening to the music as opposed to being, like, swept up into the, like, hyperactive hurricane that is half of the songs on it. And so in that zone, I enjoyed it. But then at the same time, I totally understand why it's, like, people find it annoying and hyperactive, because I also think that about it.
that's the thing, like, I found quite a lot of it a bit annoying. And it for me, it really overshadowed the bits which were really good. And
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being really harsh. And I don't mean to be harsh. Like, it's really just a stylistic thing. Like, it's like, I find the style unpleasant, and that doesn't mean it's not good. It doesn't mean it's not well written. It just means that, like, I find this kind of thing unpleasant, and it's a thing that's in a lot of metal. Comparisons to, like, I wrote my notes to Igor, who does a similar kind of thing.
Oh, I like Igor quite a lot.
Yeah, I see that
It's
comparison.
literally just me. It's just the, like, polka beat I find annoying, and I find this, like,
I hate that.
I don't know why.
That's
It
so
just
interesting,
really-
because
hate that.
Do you like it in folk metal, though?
I find it okay in folk metal. I simply spent a few years in a folk band. Like, I feel like it's kind of different.
Oh, I was driving back from my folk band rehearsals. I said to my driver,
I didn't drive anywhere.
On my cart back from the forest.
I was in the back of the cart.
I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like, I really want to like it, I just didn't.
Yeah.
I feel really bad, but...
I think having those first 3 or 4 tracks, Truth to War, those 4 tracks, I liked them.
Yeah.
And it made it more annoying how much I hated the second part of the album.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
those 4 tracks were really good. And call back to what you said earlier about Devin Townsend playing Bloodstock. I really want to see him now. Like, I do. Based on those first 4 tracks, I do want to see him. I want to go along. I might not be in the front row, but I'll definitely sit at the back and drink a cider and watch the show. Like,
Yeah,
I'm excited
I mean,
for it.
remember that he's got 25
Yeah.
solo albums and 5 with Strapping Young Lad. He's going to play some Strapping Young Lad. He'll definitely play Bad Devil. You know, there will be enough on that set list that it will probably
Oh my
be a
God.
really good show.
I swear to God, if he says this next song is called Ants, I'm going to just fucking end it right now. Like, I swear to God, I cannot.
Strapping Young
hear
Lad
that song again.
absolutely nail this thing of doing, like, the fastest, most hyperactive, like, rivaling the most extreme grindcore for how...
Yeah, Strapping Young Lad are pretty good. I've listened to a couple of Ed songs this week, and it's not, like, exactly my taste, but I like it.
I think, and now I fucking massively hesitate to compare Devin Townsend to 2 of my favourite musicians of all time.
Danny Elfman.
But Danny Elfman and
Hey!
Danny Elfman and David Bowie wrote a shitload of stuff. Danny Elfman's still fucking writing stuff, and incidentally, I think that Devin Townsend would not exist without Danny Elfman, because there's a very clear kind of, like, drawing on that.
I also picked up a Danny Elfman.
Especially Danny Elfman's new kind of rock stuff. It has that really strange hyperactive thing. Here's the thing, though. I fucking love Danny Elfman. But, like, what I was going to say about David Bowie and Danny Elfman have written such a huge amount of music that not all of it lands that well.
Yeah.
You know, I can think of songs by Danny Elfman, I can think of songs by David Bowie where it just doesn't quite land, but you still give them the credit because you're like, damn, this guy is creative. Like, he's just
That's fair.
doing so much that, like, I'm okay with it not working all the time.
Yeah,
I
and
feel like Devin Townsend, if I knew more of his music, I might feel like that about him. But on just this kind of snapshot into his sound, it frustrates me that it isn't more consistent.
I do agree with you 100%. I can see that he's obviously really talented. The amount of work he's created is incredible, and some of the tracks were great, but I also don't want to detract from just stating how much I hated the second half of this album. It just, oh my God. I've never had to turn an album off because it gave me...
I don't think I've ever seen you be so annoyed at anything.
Not only did I psychologically not enjoy this, but I had a physiological reaction to this. I felt sick listening to this. Like, how does that happen?
It is quite, like, dizzying, isn't it? It's nauseating, like ulcerate, but not in a good way.
Good comparison, because when we use the word nauseating for ulcerate, I meant it in a positive
good.
way.
Yeah.
When I say it here, I actually felt like I might have been sick on myself at some point.
Yeah, I just, I don't want to keep going on about this, but there is something about the mixing on this where, have you ever watched like just a YouTube video? It's just badly recorded and it sounds like it's like deep down in your eardrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like that a lot of the time in this album, and that really bugs me. I would like it much more if there was just like a more typical production on it. So, did you guys have any favourite songs?
I loved Ants, actually. That was my favourite track.
Wow, what a plot twist.
No, I would say Bad Devil was probably my favourite track. It's like a really interesting, like
Bad
jazzy,
Devil
hard
is
rock kind of
great.
combo.
Yeah.
A lot of songs, those first 4 tracks I actually liked. They remind me a lot of Shinedown, which is a band that I listen to a lot of, who are like a hard rock kind of band. I really like that sort of upbeat, light rock kind of stuff sometimes. And yeah, I thought Bad Devil was a good track.
Yeah, definitely. I fucking hope he plays it at Bloodstock. That would
Yeah,
be-
so do I.
I'm
And
psyched about that.
I'm really looking forward to seeing him at Bloodstock.
Yeah.
If he plays Ants, I swear to fucking God.
I feel so confused about this because my instinct is to be like, I didn't really like it that much. It wasn't really what I was expecting, what I kind of wanted it to be. But Truth, Christine, Bad Devil, Wild Colonial Boy, Life is All Dynamics, and Ants, I could see myself listening to again, which is more than half of the album.
Ants.
How the fuck did that happen? I just, I like stuff that's horrible to listen to. Ants is pushing it so far that I can't help but like it. It's like so hideous I can't look away.
I thought you and I were in agreement about a lot of things, Tom, but I'm starting to question that.
I find it...
Or wait till we get to the grindcore episode. It's all very well listening to Agoraphobic Nosebleed, but have you listened to Sordo yet?
I find it interesting how
Yeah.
the prog album on the 2 prog fans don't like it, and you, who famously hates prog, is super into it.
Well, maybe that's it, man. Maybe there's something going on there.
You might be
Maybe
more
it's not
deeply prog than we are. Maybe we're too stuck in our ways.
I mean, I feel like what have we learnt this week? Nothing. Like,
We've lost ground.
What are we even doing?
I
What's
think
the
I'm
message?
further away from understanding either of you.
So the message is that Josh, prog fan, hates prog, and Tom, hates
Prog hater, loves prog.
Yeah, so for me, the favourite songs were, I think, Truth and Christine. Like, the first section of the album is as a
Yeah.
whole, like, really good. Struggled with the rest of it, like, in the second half in particular. And I feel really bad saying this. They're not bad songs. They just didn't do it for me, you know?
Well, to make you feel less bad, I'm just going to say that I've also re-listened to those first 4 tracks that I thought I liked, and the more I've listened to them, the less I like them. So there is also...
I was worried when I first... Because when Tom says, Josh, what do you think? And I talk about Devin, I was worried. When I said that, I finished talking, and I was like, God, maybe I was too mean. And then Ben starts talking, like, oh, no, I'm good.
Yeah, you ain't got to worry.
I preferred it to Trivium.
Really?
Oh, you dick.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, come on. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, at a push, if I had to pick favourites, I'd say, Bad Devil and Christine. Yeah, a weird one. I'm glad we listened to
same.
it. I'm glad I listened to it. I'm going to check out more of his stuff and continue to both like it and also not like it very much.
Yeah,
too.
when this podcast is over, I'm going to go listen to, like, new Devin. Like, I want to hear what new Devin sounds like, because when this album come out in the 90s,
Yeah, this is 97, I think.
more than 20 years of new music, so I really want to hear the new stuff.
I'm sorry if I've ruined our chances of getting a retweet from Devin.
I think you may have, Ben. I did that too, but mostly you.
Sorry, Devin.
All right, well, good stuff. Did we like it? Did we hate it?
Nobody knows.
It's in superposition.
Oh, what a weird album, though. Like,
And this isn't going to make any sense, but I wrote, didn't mind this track, but that beat, the dum-da-dum, it's a circus
Yeah, that
soundtrack.
bit.
Irritating. The mix of everything was nauseating. That's my
I'm glad
comments
you
for
knew
that
what I
track.
mean when I said the circus beat, 'cause I don't know what the word is.
Yeah, I 100%.
Like, it's just, it annoys, like, a lot of bands do it, and it always fucking annoys me. Like...
And it's so weird that you mentioned the Spy Kids last week, Tom, because that's what it was reminding me of. It's Floops Flooblies.
It is,
I was like, this is insanity.
Spy Kids 3D was the first 3D film I saw.
What was the second?
I don't remember. Always remember your first.
I don't know why we all stopped on that. Like, Spy Kids 3 was the first 3D movie I saw. Me and Tom were just like,
I was apparently, according to Google, 8 years old.
You were 8 when I took you to see Spy Kids.
we had a lovely day. So, that was episode 7 of the Metal Face podcast. We covered Rotting Christ's album, Rituals, Project Mishram's Meso, and Devin Townsend, Infinity. Oh, and it certainly felt like an infinitive. One more. How do you guys feel about this week?
That was a really interesting.
I enjoyed it, even though I complained quite a lot. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I love Running Christ for all the usual reasons I like metal. I liked
Yeah.
Project Mishram for very different reasons, and Devin Townsend, still don't really know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting mix between Rotting Christ, pretty much exactly the reason I like metal, Project Mishram, what I want to see happening in metal, and Devin Townsend was here as well.
Yeah. This was definitely an episode of lots of proggy and unusual stuff. In a way, like, you could almost say that most of what we listened to this week wasn't really even metal. You could make the case that Devin's not really metal. Project Mishram, a lot of that isn't metal. And so I think next week we're next week we're diving right back into what is absolutely 100% bona fide metal, aren't we?
Oh, we are. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
we
had our.
I'm looking forward to my brain being full of shrapnel.
we had our black metal special.
We did.
Next week we are having a thrash special.
We're having our hashtag Thrash Attack. Get your bullet belts on.
We're getting thrashed.
I don't know if I've ever really listened to much thrash. I feel like it's foundational, right? Like everyone's heard a lot of thrash.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever paid a lot of attention to thrash, but the last couple of weeks I have been so in the thrash zone and I am fucking loving it.
Yeah, man.
I cannot wait for next week.
Absolutely. And thrash is definitely one of those things where you sort of it's not like you forget it exists, but it's so ubiquitous that you don't think about it.
Exactly, yeah. And I think we talked about it earlier in the show where there's a lot of music these days which is very atmospheric focused and like this whole big massive experience. And then you listen to thrash and you're like, this is what metal is about.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
So what 3 albums are we going to be talking about next week to try and cover the
enormous,
once again, huge genre of thrash? How the hell are we going to cover this in 3
albums?
Cover
the war zone of thrash.
the battlefield.
I'll just say, start off picking probably the biggest thrash album of all time. I've picked Rain in Blood by Slayer.
I like that you call it the biggest thrash album of all time because it's definitely my favourite.
It's got to be, right?
It's fantastic, yeah. I love it, yeah. One of my favourite albums ever.
I never listened to it, so I'm looking forward to it.
That gives us our foundation of thrash.
Absolutely. Josh, did you say you'd never listened to it?
I did. I listened to Raining Blood. I never listened to the whole album, so I'm
goddamn
going to be educated.
Yeah. It's a banger. It's all banger, no clanger.
That's what they say.
I'm listening to something the slightly faster, more grindy kind of edge of things. Chemistry of Consciousness by Toxic Holocaust.
Ooh. I'm excited.
What about you, Josh?
So what I'm bringing is, well, basically, Tom said Vector are...
Let's take a step back a bit. You suggested a death metal band.
Well, I originally said...
So Josh's first choice wasn't thrash.
I originally said, let's do Revocation, because I thought Revocation were like a thrash band. And like, I guess they're death metal, but they're definitely on like the thrash end of death metal.
Yeah, I've seen things saying there's like thrash influence.
I always thought they were.
I don't know how much we want to. I don't know how much we want to include the behind the scenes drama.
Yeah, Tom and I had a apocalyptic
lasted weeks
screaming fight.
It was horrible. I had to hold this show together by my knuckles while I was also listening to Devin Townsend this week.
Oh, you had a rough week.
One more.
But I'm now doing instead. So Tom said you might like Vector, so they do lots of sci-fi music, and I said that suits me. So I'm doing Terminal Redux by Vector.
Nice.
Sci-fi concept albums are my jam. So here we go.
I've listened to it. I haven't given it the time that it probably deserves, so I'm psyched to get into that.
So like we did with the black metal episode, we're trying to cover a whole genre in 3 albums. Yeah. It's impossible. But I think we got a good mix there.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a good episode. I'm looking forward to next week. It's going to be good fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to you then, losers.
We've got to get better at these sign-offs. That was the Metal Face Podcast. Go follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for Season of Mist, Character Anger, and Separation for their music in the intro. And thank you to Johnny Peterson for transition music throughout. Go check out his projects at Heads for the Dead, Massacre, Wormvale, and Wombat. And most importantly, thank you for listening, take it easy, and hail Satan.
Hey Siri, is Revocation a thrash metal band?
Great as Arson is by Revocation.
That wasn't as funny as I thought it would be.